Hi everybody, and welcome to the Art of Procurement podcast. I'm Philip Ideson.
And I'm Kelly Barner.
And all through November, we're celebrating 5 years of the Art of Procurement podcast.
And to celebrate, we're answering some of the most frequently asked questions that we have received from listeners since the podcast began with a daily 5-minute show.
And so today is the last in the series, and here in the United States, it's the day after Thanksgiving. Black Friday kicks off the holiday shopping series, and in many homes around the country, the Christmas season. So we're going to have a little fun today. A question that we actually often get asked is, how do we create stronger relationships with our suppliers? And last Christmas, we created an infographic that became one of our most downloaded pieces of content of the year. And it was called 5 Ways to Give Your Suppliers a Merry Christmas this year. And so what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to share the 5 ways that we wrote about in that infographic, and I have one more at the end to add. And the number 1 is pay them on time. Nothing impacts the health of a supplier relationships more than late payments. This is especially true in industries where payment terms are already extended. If your suppliers are on the verge of stopping service because they're not getting paid, you'll be the one to end up with a stocking full of coal this Christmas. And just to add to that, oftentimes in procurement, late payments, it's something that, we kind of point the finger at accounts payable. We don't necessarily, and I say this personally having been there, we'd see payment issues as something that maybe it wasn't our domain or our responsibility, and we'd push that over to finance and to accounts payable. Really, when you're on the other side of the table, as I have been now, the impact of late payments can be really big on a business. So if anything you do this Christmas is to really help your suppliers get open invoices paid, then that's going to have a really big impact for them. Now, the number 2 on our list was maintain an open door policy. And so really the thinking behind this is that most of us only really communicate with our suppliers when there's a problem. So be proactive, check in on them to share updates on continued challenges, or reach out about how your strategy is evolving, because that communication really helps build trust. And your supplier is going to recognize you as a partner, not as a transaction. And the number 1 thing that we hear that a lot of suppliers are challenged with is just lack of communication from the buyers. And that's because as buyers, we've got so many things going on. We're juggling so many things in the air. So it does take some work, but it's some work that actually really has a benefit and an impact. The number 3 way was to enable their performance. So the chances of your supplier achieving what they've been contracted to achieve and achieving more than that really increase exponentially when you work with them to help them break down the barriers that impede their progress. So make sure that they know that you want to hear about those barriers as they crop up, work side by side to resolve them. If you're managing to the letter of the contract, that can lead to a really frustrated supplier relationship, and one that truly neither party gets the most out of that relationship than they could if you're working a lot more proactively. Now, number 4 is enable their creativity. Great suppliers really are creative suppliers, and they often have the greater capacity for innovation than we as buyers do. So talk to them about your challenges and give them some free license to make suggestions. You might get access to fresh thinking, better outcomes, as opposed to looking again at it as a transaction or a specification or a statement of work-based relationship. Suppliers often have some really great ideas about how you can get even better outcomes at a reduced price or a lower, I don't want to say from a pricing perspective, but it's more a cost perspective on their behalf, which then obviously trickles down for you in terms of a lower price. The 5th is to partner on cost and share the rewards. So find if there's ways to control costs by managing demand, by managing specs, as we just talked about, by altering service scope. Most suppliers receive this as a breath of fresh air compared to those price-only discussions. And if you're able to find ways with them to help reduce the cost to serve, that's actually something they can apply to other clients or other parts of the business for them, which actually helps them from a margin perspective. And again, much more of a productive conversation than just going and asking for cost savings. And finally, here's the 6th one. And this is one that we didn't include on the infographic. So if you're in the process of awarding some business at the end of the year here, and you know that you're going to award the business to, and I stress this is really only for when you already know the sourcing decision that you're going to make. You may have even notified them and be in the contracting process. Do everything that you can to get that contract signed before the end of the year. Because for a small business, knowing that they have the contract before the holidays may actually be a game changer for them next year. They'll be able to plan for 2021 during this quiet period that's coming up at the end of the year, knowing that they can count on this business, count on this revenue. Not knowing might actually mean a holiday period of stress and an inability to plan, so it can make a really big difference for them. For a larger business, maybe it just means that your sales rep gets a bigger bonus this year before Christmas. But after this year of struggle, if you have the ability to make that happen, you are still going to be making a big difference to the end of year for them and their family. So if there's anything you can do to get those contracts wrapped up this year, if you know that you're going to be awarding them, that will be a real help for those suppliers, big or small, come the end of the year. I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. All the podcasts in this series can be found at artofprocurement.com/5 years. That's the number 5. That's artofprocurement.com/5 years.